it's our foot feeling the ground, sending a message through to our central nervous system, and then our central nervous system reacting and changing the output for our foot. If we wear a shoe that stops our foot feeling, then you're missing out on our foot's interaction with its environment, which is critical to that feedback loop for our central nervous system. The foot is like the conduit between our environment or the ground and the way your body's moving. And so when you change into barefoot shoes, you start questioning other parts of your life. Like, why am I needing a pillow to sleep on? Why am I eating these supplementary foods? Why is my diet not enough just to provide that? Why am I not getting enough sleep? You start questioning all these other parts of your life. The feet are like this little starter, the thing that makes you start thinking about the way your body should be naturally.
All right, Andy, thanks for coming on. I've been looking forward to this episode. You're one of my favorite podiatrists on Instagram, and I'm into the barefoot shoes. I transitioned from more traditional shoes to barefoot shoes years ago, and it's made a huge difference in everything from my comfort to my performance. So thanks for coming on, Andy.
Thanks for having me. It can really be life-changing and makes you question a whole lot of other things in life when you start looking at your feet from a natural perspective.
Yeah, I was just wondering for you, why podiatry? Like, why did you end up on podiatry? What about podiatry did you feel A, drew you in, and B, was something you wanted to like make your life?
Yeah, so when
the more I get
I
into
was in
it, the
high
more
school,
sorry, I think we got a delay. But yeah, just the more I get
yeah, go
into it,
on.
the more I feel that the foot is kind of the center of human movement, right? And so that's my draw to it, and that's kind of. But yeah, just for you, what's the draw?
Yeah, so when I started out, I was only like 19 years of age studying podiatry at university, and you just do what you're told pretty much. You don't know any different. I was an elite running athlete, like middle distance running athlete, and so I'd had some foot issues and lower limb issues, and maybe that was what I was drawn to it. But I was treated very traditionally, and then I practiced very traditionally after studying for 4 years, and then for 15 years I practiced traditionally, and that's kind of, adding more shoe, more orthotics, things like that. But then by then I was a cyclist, and I had a series of head injuries, like 4 concussions within 2 years, and I wasn't able to cycle anymore. And so I was drawn to other forms of exercise and ended up doing a lot of yoga. I think it was good for my headspace as well. But I noticed my feet were getting stronger while I was doing yoga, like getting really strong. And we'd been taught that you couldn't strengthen the foot, that they were small muscles and you couldn't really load them, and that the foot needs support, and all these cultural ideas about feet. And so, but I noticed in my own feet they were getting stronger, and I should do something about it for my clients as well. And I'd been making orthotics, telling them to wear bigger shoes, telling them not to go barefoot, this type of thing for years. And so it was a big step for me to go to my clients and explain something different, but probably spoke of the relationship I had with them. A lot of them took it on board and sort of followed along. And that's now 10 years ago that I started practicing in this different way, and encouraging people to rehabilitate their feet the way they would rehabilitate any other part of their body, whether it be their shoulder, their neck, their back, their hips. They would get it moving better, and then they would add load and get it stronger. And that's how I look at feet now as well. We get them moving better, and then we get them stronger. And so, what drew me to podiatry? Probably because I was athletic and had dealt with podiatrists or physios, physical therapists. And now, it wasn't because I love feet or anything. Now I think I appreciate them more than ever. I think as podiatrists, we're kind of taught that they need help. But now I understand that they are powerful and can be conducive to your whole body moving well. And so, only later in my career, like I'm 25 years into my career, and now I realize that. So that's
Yeah,
kind of my little story about how I got to where I am in terms of podiatry.
I was a baseball player growing up, but when you're throwing, it's like that release point is what you have to focus on to get accurate. That's like the end of the kinetic chain of the throw. So, and with pretty much all movement, your feet are the end of the kinetic chain. So it's almost like if your foot is in a good position, everything upstream has to be in a good position as well.
Yeah, and the way we look at foot function now is very different to the way it used to be. We used to think they had to be really, they were a mobile adapter, like the foot would land and adapt, and then it would become stiff as we pushed off. And you could imagine in that pitching action, your foot, we thought that the foot was stiff as it pushed off, but and then shoes were built around this squishy, so you could help with shock absorption, and then stiff so that they could help you push off. But the latest research shows that the foot is still mobile when it's pushing off. It doesn't stiffen; it just changes shape, and and it depends. Like every time you move, it's in a different way, and really, it's our foot feeling the ground, sending a message through to our central nervous system, and then our central nervous system reacting and changing the output for our foot. And so if we wear a shoe that stops our foot feeling, then you're missing out on our foot's interaction with its environment, which is critical to that feedback loop for our central nervous system, and then using your foot powerfully. And so that is definitely the case. It's that start of the kinetic chain, or more importantly, or another way to look at it, I should say, it's about how the foot is like the conduit between our environment or the ground, and in baseball that could be the mound, and the way your body's moving. And so it's super important. It's almost like the tire on a car. That the car, your body is the engine, your legs are the suspension, and then the suspension and wheels, and then the tire is like the foot. And so that tire is just being told what to do by the ground and the car, and the foot is just kind of adapting, and the tire is as well, depending on what those two things, the body moving over it and the environment moving under it, are doing. And so it's hugely important. It is how we connect with the earth, and therefore is obviously going to affect how we move.
I'm curious, when like the deeper you get into it, is there like a right foot pattern, or are there like when you think of the foot structurally, is there a way that it should be or it ought to be? It seems like everyone has such unique anatomies that there's a lot of variance. And when I would see videos of like people's foot strike in running, it's like sometimes it looks completely different. I saw one recently that was like a famous runner, and I'm like, it can't be that. Like it looked horrible, and then they zoomed out, and I was like, oh, it can't be that bad. Like, so yeah, I was curious, just yeah, from a structural perspective, is there like with a house, if you build a house, there's the foundation, there's framing
Mm.
on top of that, and most of the time it's going to be traditional, right angles everywhere. It's if the angles aren't 90, that's not how it ought to be. Something's off. um
Yeah.
so yeah, how do you think of the foot structurally?
It's an awesome question, because people get really caught up in alignment and posture, and these old models of foot function are really caught up on that the heel needs to be straight and not tipping in, and that the arch needs to be a certain shape, and not moving too much, and then that your knees should be facing this way, and everything should be working in this perfect way, and that when the foot hits the ground, it should move in this this perfect way. But as you said, uh, everyone's anatomy is so different, and also their environment is so different, that the way we move through it has to be different. Um, and so, you might see one guy running at a certain speed, and the next guy running at the same speed is using a different technique, and that's okay, because their anatomy or whatever brought them to that point in time made them efficient in that way. And to change it is a recipe for having an injury. Like if you just change it for the sake of making it look perfect. And so often I have parents come in with their kids that have got feet that are lower arched, or their heels tip in, and they're worried about their posture. And this comes from this industrialization of society, and standing upright with this perfect posture in the military, ready to do what you're told. But really, posture should be dynamic, and there's nothing wrong with any position as long as you can move in and out of those positions. And so the arches of the foot, there are three: the one on the inside, the outside, and one across the middle. They're meant to be dynamic. They're meant to pronate and supinate, change shape depending on how you're moving. If you're even walking on a treadmill, at the same pace, at the same gradient over and over again, but then you turn your head one way, your foot is going to do something different because you turned your head. You know, any movement of the rest of your body can affect what your foot's doing. And obviously, if you were changing the speed and the gradient of this flat, hard surface, that would also change what your foot is doing. And so there are ideals and perfect, but that doesn't mean you're less likely to get injured or that there's a right way. They're just man-made constructs that have in the past made it easier for us to define foot function. But the truth is, it's a complex interaction of our body and our environment. And so you're right in saying that everyone does it differently, and it doesn't really matter. That said, if someone is like overstriding and has a low cadence and they're getting injured, changing their cadence and maybe meaning they don't overstride so much could change their injury prospects. You know, you might change something when there's an injury in place, but mostly if it ain't broke, don't change it. Don't fix it. Yeah.
Okay, so then let's dive into like the if it is broke side of things. So what are the components you're looking for? Like just from a macro level first, if someone's having pain, if someone's experiencing recurring issues, what are the signals that you're looking for?
Yeah. So when someone comes to see me as a podiatrist in my practice, I practice privately. I have an hour initial consultation. I usually know what they're coming for first. Like I've talked to them on the phone, like a little very small workup, so they understand where I'm going to be coming from, and I understand where they're going to be coming from. And then I just sit there and listen, like for 20 minutes often. The first 20 minutes of the consultation is just hearing about and questioning how they got to where they are now, whether that be, this week, yesterday I had a lady she was in her 40s and had a lateral ankle sprain when she was 10 that was never rehabilitated well and has always suffered because of it. So we went through this full history of why she may be having these ankle issues that probably stemmed from when she had this big lateral ankle sprain when she was 10 years of age. And then, and I'm just like building up, like why is this an issue now? And then what are we going to be able to do about it? What can we put in place that might change things? And then I will assess a gait, watching someone walk. And some people go into the nth degree of gait. I look for the big funky thing, the thing that could be like a huge red flag. No wonder this person has pain. Like what the hell's going on here, Because like I just said, everyone walks or runs and moves differently, like within reason. And so I'm looking for something that's kind of like out of the box. Like if there's a normal spectrum, we used to think normal was one thing, and now there's this spectrum of normal. So I'm looking for something that's out of that spectrum, because that might be something that we could change and have an effect. Okay. And then I'll go through some more detailed assessment of like watching someone squat, someone balance, do a calf raise, how much mobility their big toe has, how much mobility their ankle has, how they do a single leg squat as well, just seeing how their body organizes themselves. Again, looking for big red flags. Like, is it because the ankle is so stiff, or there's not enough calf strength, or because of big toe stiffness, or, like trying to find something that is going to be worth that you're going to get sort of bang for your buck for trying to change, because the body is complex, and complex problems or complex systems often require simple solutions. So I look for something that's going to be a simple solution that we can put something in place to make a change, and then we'll be able to measure whether that change worked, rather than doing a whole lot of different things and then you don't know what you started with or where you're coming from. You just get more confusion and add more confusion to it. So mostly I look for one of those big red flags to address, and definitely the environment the foot is in. So that's footwear and lifestyle, because your foot is along for the ride with your lifestyle. So if you're not sleeping well, eating well, moving in many and variable ways, and your foot's in a shoe that is not conducive to the way it could function, then I'm going to change those things as well. And straight away, if you're looking at lifestyle, footwear, and some big red flags in terms of rehab, then you've built out like a pretty comprehensive treatment program that's still a lot for someone to take on when I'm telling them to go buy new shoes, make sure they're changing their lifestyle habits a bit, and doing some foot exercises. So yeah, that's how I go about it. I look for big red flags,
Yeah,
basically. Yeah.
gotcha. I'm a trainer. I wear many hats. That's one of them. So I'm definitely think of it from the movement perspective, but I feel like with feet, there's these other elements that I don't understand as well, like the grounding aspect, the way the feet connects with the ground. I've
Yep.
also there's like these myths, like if you saran wrap onions to your feet or they like put your feet in goat milk. I've heard these things over the years where like you're like the feet like that's where the lymph drainage happens. I don't know. Um but just beyond the movement, are there things that you're considering when
I
you're looking at how healthy a foot is?
Yeah, for sure. I sort of stay away from talking about grounding too much because I don't understand it so well. But I won't deny it feels very good to be barefoot on the earth, and I myself have been drawn to that in times of stress, like when my body might be stressed, and I know that that makes me feel better. And I think there is, some research showing that your electromagnetic field is balanced more when you come in contact with the earth compared to having a negative. I don't understand fully, so I would never deny it, but I don't prescribe it. But I do prescribe people going barefoot on the earth to help calm their nervous system because I feel like that has some ability. And also, if they've got chronic pain and they're so used to not feeling anything in their foot, I might send them on a on some barefoot exploration walks in their yard, where they know it's safe, and I want their foot to feel something other than the pain that it's been feeling for the last 5 years or whatever. Um, and so I definitely prescribe that. Not un, I do that commonly. Send people for barefoot walks because it really brings a sense of mindfulness and calmness, and you have to really be sure of where you're going to be walking, and you start really feeling things, and your feet are meant to be able to feel things. So I definitely prescribe that, and especially in those chronic pain situations or neuropathies, which is where you might not feel things so well, or where you might have heightened sensitivity or change sensitivity. And I guess that's a little bit different to movement. I definitely prescribe things to trigger or to stimulate our nervous system in other ways, because I think our hard, flat surfaces and our cushioned, stiff shoes mean our nervous system is kind of a bit at sea when it comes to trying to get feedback from the feet. And so I try and encourage some of my clients to do stuff to open up those channels. So that can be like some scratching on the surface of their foot, on rough surfaces, some sharp things, not sharp enough to break the skin, obviously, some deep pressure, warmth, cold, hot, um, vibration, all the different, like trying to tick all the different nervous system stimuli, because that can, and not all at one go, usually like let's do one a day because it can be overload if their foot is so unused to feeling anything. And this can be super helpful with chronic pain situations. There's some insoles I use, like a Naboso insole. It's like a little insole that has little dots on it, and you can put that in the shoe, and that can be helpful because it's just changing the message, like giving some different message. I work for the Foot Collective, not exclusively, but that's sort of one of the hats I wear, and we use a Soulmate, which is like a cork dome, like hard cork half dome. And I have clients with plantar fasciitis do work on that, where they're getting some deep pressure into the rest of their foot, not on their heel. We're not trying to break down the heel spur or break the plantar fascia. We're just trying to get deep pressure into the rest of the foot, so the brain goes, oh, I can feel something different today, and then that's going to change the way the foot is going to be, the brain is going to be perceiving pain in the area. Because when you have that plantar heel pain, your brain is hyper focused on it. And so if we can change those messages, I definitely do that for sure. In terms of these ideas about draining toxins, I've seen some of that stuff where they put the special pad on, and I think that would maybe happen anywhere. Like I've never really gone into it. I could, but I feel like I've got enough to help my clients with without going into that. But if they want to do it, go for it. Like I'm not against anything like that. Yeah, I nearly went
Yeah.
into reflexology instead of movement rehab, but I'm glad I didn't because it would be far narrower, and I think I'm better served, and it suits me better to do movement stuff. So yeah, I'm definitely movement focused, but and that nervous system side of stuff needs to be addressed. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, you were talking earlier about kind of your pre-podiatrist life. You're a cyclist, and I'm
Mm.
sure your feet were pretty messed up from the cycling shoes. And I've one pair of those that, yeah, they're not very comfortable. I'm curious, as someone who's been like focused on the foot, and I'll put it on you like intelligently. So, um, for an extended period of time now, how would you like how would you contrast your understanding now of movement and also the way you feel compared to how you were as a cyclist? You're also, I mean, you're active. I'm sure you're
Mm.
doing pretty well overall, but just like, yeah, you know, it's like
Yeah,
those,
that's a.
yeah.
I really like these questions. Very yeah, yeah.
Yeah, go
Go
ahead,
on.
go ahead.
Um, so as a cyclist, I would say I was the fittest I've ever been, like unbelievably fit, like riding 20 hours a week, and like could go up a hill was so fast and sit in the biggest bunches and win some races at my level, and unbelievably fit, but um, not very healthy, I would suggest, because it was all one thing. I only got into the gym training as a cyclist later on, like at the very end when I started crashing more as well. But I would still do strength work on the bike, but it was all just on the bike. And the bike's amazing because you can just do so much work on it. Whereas as a runner, you break down if you just keep running more and more like that. And so many other of those weight bearing activities, you break down. But with cycling, because it's there's not that hitting of the ground unless you fall off. You can just do a lot and you can get unbelievably fit, but in a very unnaturally unhealthy way. Especially as cycling is not even a human endeavor. Like it's not what our body's made to do. It's so one dimensional, just up and down, round and round and round in this one plane of movement. And so I had a massage every week, like a soft tissue deep massage every week for 18 years from when I was, no, maybe even longer, for 20 years from when I was 18 to when I was 38. Every week I would have a massage. And if I missed it, I'd be like, my body was hanging out for it. And so then when I had to quit because I'd hit my head too often, I I started yoga and I was like, oh, I don't need a massage anymore. I was moving my body in like in more human ways. So suddenly I wasn't just stuck in this position and my legs just going in one direction. And I definitely put on weight because I was super skinny, like unnaturally skinny. But I didn't get overweight. I got stronger because I started going to the gym. I got more mobile as well, probably because I was getting stronger as well, because getting stronger makes you more able to control your range of motion. And I was moving in different ways. And so um, and my feet kind of were just were obviously improving as well. I was definitely in skinny cycling shoes, and like to round out the stories, my son, he's 16 now and really loving cycling. He rides a lot, and he's fitting into my old cycling shoes, and I can't. My feet won't fit in them anymore. I had to go up a size and find a brand called Bont, Bont. They make a broader shoe, but my foot's even too narrow for that. So now I'm in this like specially branded, like a specially built barefoot cycling shoe by Strong Feet Athletic. It's called the Leviathan. It's unbelievably comfortable, but it's a bit heavy. So I'm actually looking into custom made cycling shoes now because now I'm back riding because he's 16 and being on the road by yourself when you're 16 is probably less healthy than me not being on the road. And so I am helping him, and my feet are sore if I'm not wearing properly wide shoes. So I'm now looking into more custom shoes so that they're out there. This is this world that's coming on of barefooted shoes or custom shoes in cycling, but barefoot shoes in the rest of footwear is like it's so broad that there's no excuse now. You can find a shoe for just about any activity that should fit your foot properly. And so now I'm far more healthy. Like I wasn't worrying about my sleep. I was just eating. I had to eat a huge amount because I was needing to refuel. So I was probably eating pretty well to refuel. Um, and I was not doing any strength or mobility work. I was just riding my bike a lot. So now I'm at 48, probably healthier than I was when I was 38 when I had to stop cycling. Just because I'm more conscious of the way I move, and my practice in podiatry has changed in that time as well. So it's kind of like a whole lifestyle thing for me. This barefoot change for my practice has also influenced my whole life for sure. And that's what I meant when I said at the start, when you change into barefoot shoes, you start questioning other parts of your life. Like, why am I needing a pillow to sleep on? Why do I need such a big pillow? Well, I needed a big pillow probably because I was sitting on my bike like this so much that I needed this space filled out when I was sleeping. But now I'm on the tiniest pillow. Or why am I eating these supplementary foods? Why is my diet not enough just to provide that? Why am I not getting enough sleep? You start questioning all these other parts of your life. And often the feet are, well, in my world, the feet are like this little starter, the thing that makes you start thinking about the way your body should be naturally. Um, yeah. So I think that answers that. I hope.
Yeah, yeah, that's that's pretty much what I was wondering. I've been playing flag football, and I haven't played
Oh
sports,
yeah,
field sports since high school. I've been doing martial arts and stuff, but I'm back in cleats, and I'm going through the same thing you're describing with the biking shoes. I'm getting deeper, and I'm trying to
yeah,
find some custom barefoot cleats. But I actually
yeah.
reached out to another guy with one of those
Yep.
companies, trying to have him on for an episode here too.
Cool.
But
Was
yeah,
it pre-Volve or Code?
no, it was actually, I think it was Prevolve. The It's custom one that they do
Yeah,
custom.
yeah.
Yeah,
They sent
yeah.
me
I
a
was
pair
gonna
for.
check that
I
one.
play golf as well. Yeah, I play golf as well, and that's like a whole nother um, story about golf shoes. They're like stiff like this, and they've got a heel, and they're like so rigid. And then you watch a world number one golfer, and his feet are moving so much and pushing off the ground. And this has been kind of since golf shoes have become more flexible and more like a runner. And he's using his feet like this. That's Scotty Scheffler. And the traditional golf shoe is so stiff. Anyway, so Prevolve said, "Oh, do you want to like I've been like searching for the ultimate golf shoe for this last 5 to 10 years, and I got a pair of the Prevolve. I think he made them a little just a little tight for me because they're used to making them a firm fit for things like football. Um, but it was unbelievable to have a shoe that's made just for you. It felt unbelievably good. But possibly I walk up and down hills carrying my my clubs on my back, and my golf course is really hilly. And I think going down the hills, I was feeling it a little bit at the end of the shoe. I think I needed a bit more space, but yeah, they were pretty cool. And they're making shoes for elite athletes in the NFL and the NBA and this type of thing. Um, those brands are because, but they're still putting like the traditional brand names on the side of the shoes that are being custom made. But it's really good to see. I mean, this is what's happening. You know, we're getting with 3D printing and the like, we can do amazing stuff. But there are also versions of shoes that work pretty well as cleats, like the trail running barefoot shoes work okay as a cleat, you
Yeah,
know. And now there are cleats that are barefoot shoes, like Nature Athletics. A friend of mine makes them. They're super wide though, so it's like a different experience to be able to play in those. But if a kid started in them, that'd be fine. But and otherwise, you have to kind of retrain your feet to be able to cope with the width of that cleat. Yeah, there's a few other brands as well. Free Kicks, I think, is another one, and Icarus might be making another one. So they're coming. You know, it's pretty exciting times for people's feet.
yeah. It's I've been playing baseball the last few years and just barefoot trail running shoes. But
Yeah,
yeah, with flag football, I needed something a little deeper to cut. But
yeah.
I was curious. I've dabbled a little bit with ultra running. It's not really my thing, but just to throw that out as like an avatar, right? So
Mm,
if you were working with an ultra runner, not because uh, like just because that's an extreme, like just to
yeah,
take this example to extreme. Um, yeah. So someone who's load bearing on their foot for probably similar to what you're cycling, 20 hours a week. Um,
yeah.
what can someone in that position do? And then yeah,
I
what's
think it comes down to like it's easy for me to say they should still be in a cushioned shoe because they're doing so much, but I think that's because they got used to the cushioned shoe first. If say a child was always in barefoot shoes, and then at 14 or 15, when they're making their like sport of choice, which is probably still too young, but they are choosing to become a runner, and they was to stay in barefoot shoes, and then became an ultra runner, and at 30 was doing 20 hours a week running, I think they would be, and it had gradually increased load over time. I'm not saying they're going to be less injured. They still might be injured. They still might be having a bad night's sleep and drink and big night on the grog, or having a fight with their partner, and then getting injured because of all these other aspects that might have an effect on injury. But that doesn't mean they wouldn't be able to run in a barefoot shoe if that was all they knew. But most people that are ultra runners have not come from that background. They've come from wearing cushion shoes and have become accustomed to them. And so if I'm looking after a client that's that type of runner, or someone like that, or even not even that type of runner, even someone's only doing 4 hours of running a week, and the shoe is less of an issue about their running, because that's only 4 hours compared to like 20 hours even, then I'll be more worried about what the shoes they're wearing all the rest of the time than their running shoe. But that said, there are amazingly good running shoes now, a brand called Altra, Altra, that have they've even got a carbon plate version, and they've got super stacked versions as well, and enough room to move your toes. I think that's the critical thing. At TFC, we call it the 5Fs, the fundamentals of good footwear. And the number one is that it should be foot shaped. And so even if you're used to a cushioned, heeled, stiff shoe, at least make it foot shaped so your toes can move. Because as soon as you push your toes together, it's like trying to do a handstand on your hand like this rather than with your hand outstretched. No one would try and do that. Your foot should have the ability to splay and then spring back again. And people do get caught up on this idea of having splayed toes. It's not that your foot should always be. It just should be able to go to that and then be able to move. Because most of the muscles in the foot and the calf attach to the toes. And so if we're stopping those attachments from moving, then that's going to have an effect like not only in the foot but into your calf, and that's going to be further up the chain. So nearly all shoes taper at the base of the toes, pushing the toes together. And so a non-negotiable for me is for my clients to wear a foot-shaped shoe, a shoe that lets their toes be able to spread. And whether you're an ultra runner or running 10 miles a week, you should be wearing a shoe that lets your foot spread. And there is, again, no excuse now. There are shoes that are stiff, carbon-plated, heeled, that are still wide enough. In fact, I'm quite fascinated with the ultra runners of the time at the moment as well. I think a week and a half ago, the World Backyard Ultra Marathon Champions was on. Did you see that at all?
I didn't even see that. Is that the one where they do the loops like every hour
Yeah.
on the hour? Yeah.
Yeah, 6.7 kilometers. I think that's 4 mile every hour on the hour. And there's this guy from Australia, the other side of Australia, Phil Gore. He holds a world record, and the world record's interesting because you can only do a lap more than the next guy, and then that's the end of the race. And so he holds a world record here in Australia. He did it earlier this year of 119 laps. That's 119 hours of running 6.7 kilometers or 4 miles every hour. That's
Crazy.
5 days of doing that. And he could have kept going, I'm sure, but the guy that came second pulled out at 118. He went on. Anyway, the world champs were over in the States last week or the week before. It's hard because they go for so long. It's actually more than a week, and he got to 114 because the second last guy did 113. And then here in Melbourne this weekend, there's another similar thing. It's called King of the Hill, and a friend of mine did it, where they run about 3 mile up this really steep hill. It's probably 600 foot of elevation every lap for the 3 mile. So it's super steep, and then they come back, and that's every hour. They're up to hour 83 at the moment. So I'm kind of fascinated by this. And Phil, the guy that won the world championships over there in the States, he wears a brand called Tarkine, Tarkine, and they're a little wider in the toe box. And he wears creeper socks, which are toe socks. And they have very strict rules about how they look after their feet, because if their feet fail them, then they're out, So every 12 hours, I think he's washing his feet and, giving them a special rub down, changing his shoes and socks every 12 hours. And my friend runs in those Ultra shoes. He got to like 50 or 60 hours, I think. He was like the fourth last to drop, just like yesterday. This is blowing me away. Like, I'm really inspired by these guys. I also have this ability to nap, and these guys, they'll run for like 40 minutes. and they'll get the lap done in 40 minutes and then sleep for 10 to 15 minutes. And
That's
then they have
crazy.
to go up again. And they just do that overnight. Phil Gore, especially, he runs faster overnight so he can sleep every hour. And then during the day, he slows his running down because he doesn't have to worry about sleeping so much. So he tries to stay in those rhythms of night and day. It's unbelievable. Like the science behind it is just, yeah, it blows me away.
Yeah, ultra running, like you're bringing up barefoot shoes as kind of one of the things that changed your whole like assumption making processes, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, ultra running was one of those things for me. It's just like the more I understood it, the more I had to change things that I'd been assuming about human movement. Um,
Yeah. Have you done some ultra running?
I did a 50K just to see. I was a trainer, and some of my clients at the gym I was working at were doing it, and I could see what they were doing in the gym. I was like, man, I feel like maybe I could do it. But I'd always thought like I'd run one half marathon just to see if I could do it a year or two prior to that, and so I was like,
Yeah.
try it. But I did it. It was hard, but it was more doable than I thought it would be. Not easy or comfortable at all, but yeah, I got the ultra shoes, and I, I do my slower training in the Vivo Barefoots, the longer training in the ultras.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, right now I'm trying to do one. It's 10K a day every day for 100 days. I'm like
Oh, wow.
70 days into that, so I'm just it's trying to. It's what I like about it is that when you up the volume, like you you were kind of talking about it earlier, but like you find some, I call them a bottleneck or a point of friction, you know, like something becomes clear that you were overlooking. Like
Yeah.
yeah, the when you overload the volume, same thing with speed or power. Like when you're overloading anything, you end up with some new hinge point that you may not have been aware at. So
Yeah.
the more I keep going, for me right now, it's my right foot. I had a knee injury when I was young, and I think just the aftermath of that, I changed my gait, and so I'm trying to kind of retrain my foot, and that's the more volume I do, the more signals I get, the more adjustments I can make.
Yeah,
Um,
and I like the way you think because really you're using yourself as as a number one experiment and
yeah,
learning through your own experimenting. That's definitely what I've done as well. Not always wisely, like
yeah,
you do something stupid, like no wonder I got injured because of this, or
yeah,
I got sick. And then I performed better than I've ever performed because I freshened up because I was sick,
hmm
because for once I didn't overtrain.
yeah,
Um, but it's really interesting with my son now. You can see it's in him to overtrain, especially as he's riding. Like I'm always pulling him back, just like saying, "Hey, you got to sleep in this tomorrow morning. Having a rest is more important." Um, it's really interesting. It's so much easier to tell someone else than than to deal with it yourself. But we are the guy that started the Foot Collective, Nick St. Louis. He's a Canadian physical therapist. He says we should be experiment 101 for ourselves. You experiment on yourself first, see what happens, and then you learn from it, and then spread it out and see what happens after that. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's yeah. Um, I I was curious too. So that was kind of one avatar, and then it's just you brought it up, but if, as a parent, um, you're raising someone who doesn't have any trained foot patterns. When you're not trying to untrain it, how how would you approach that?
yeah.
Um,
That's interesting. I've got some personal experience with that as well because um, well, first for myself, I had a very natural gait, and people would say, "Wow, you look amazing when you run." And then I overtrained when I was like 18, 19. I had a coach that was making me do more, like more and more, and I became like a plotter, and my technique changed, and I started getting injured because of that increase in miles. And this was like in the mid 90s, mid to late 90s. That's how old I am. And then, but in the early 80s, there was this Steve Ovett and Sebastian Coe, who's now like big in the Olympic Committee. And they were these two Englishmen battling it out over the 800, 1500 meter and 5K. And one, Steve Ovett, was all about like doing big kilometers and just burying himself. And then Coe was in the gym and doing plyometrics and doing sprint work. And then they would clash in these events and be very even. And I think in the 1980 Olympics, Coe was meant to win the 800, but Ovett won it. And Ovett was meant to win the 1500, but Coe won it. And so this really showed that there's more than one way to skin a cat. Anyway, I started getting coached out here in Australia by the guy that had been coaching Ovet. And so he was all about just getting, just slogging 20 athletes and one would shine, and I wasn't going to be that one that shone. I just got injured. And that would have changed my technique for sure. Then I watched my son run when he was like 9, and it's like unbelievable to watch. He has this amazingly beautiful style, and he's pretty much only been in barefoot shoes. Maybe he wasn't in barefoot shoes until he was about 7, but it wasn't a shoe that was bad for him or anything. But my daughter, she's 18 now. She runs quite regularly in Vivos, up to 10 mile. Like 3 times a week, she'll go for a run between 4 mile and 10 mile. And she's tiny, like not 5 foot, not big at all, like really a tiny person. And she's like an elephant when you run alongside her. Like her foot strike is so heavy. I'm like, Lucy, why don't you just be a bit lighter on your feet? She's like, Dad, this is how I naturally run. Why would you change that? I'm like, yeah, you got a point. You got a point. She's just not a natural runner, but I think she could go all day. She could just keep going all day, not fast and maybe not super efficiently, but maybe, if we went back 3,000 years, she's probably not the person going for like chasing down our prey, She
Yeah.
might be more conducive to being the message runner when it wasn't that important message. I just think we all have our own styles and gaits and stuff, and we should just let them be. But they are probably a product of their environment to some extent. Maybe if we'd started her running barefoot as a young kid, it might be a bit different. Anyway, that's just my personal experience. With kids running, they definitely, that's my other idea that I love this analogy. This idea, if you went to the local basketball stadium and the 10-year-olds were running up and down the court with all their Nikes and they've all got massive shoes on. They are like a herd of elephants running up and down. You can hear them stomping, boom, boom, boom. If you take those 10-year-olds out into the street on the road and wave an ice cream 100 meters away, but make sure they take their shoes off first. So they're on a hard, flat surface and they're being asked to sprint. They will all run with significantly different technique. And so there is a part of me that thinks children learn to run poorly because they wear so much shoe that they get away with landing very heavily on the ground, overstriding, the things that aren't great for running. Because especially at that age, their nervous system just wants to get feedback from the ground. And so it's going to hit as hard as it can so that it gets some feedback. But at that age, you can still adapt you could have them running in the basketball court and then 5 minutes later take their shoes off. They will run differently immediately because they're so adaptive to their environment. So I like that idea. But I'm never going to get all these kids to run around barefoot. So,
Yeah.
but maybe that's kind of the goal, the long-term goal. Yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't know if I'm answering your questions. I just go off on tangents, but it's good to
Yeah.
discuss, Yeah, I
Yeah.
think
That's
about
the
this
whole
stuff. So,
point of the
yeah,
podcast. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, do you feel like the times changing? Like, do you just being someone deep into it? Do you feel the times changing? And then um, what do you think? What do you hope and expect that will be like the common footwear in 20 years?
Yeah. I'm doing a talk on the weekend to mainstream podiatrists and physical therapists. And, if we all have people come in with a foot injury and they go, but I wear good shoes. And the good shoe has been something with a heel. Like we're told this is the good shoe. We're taught as podiatrists, this is the good shoe. Something with a heel, something that's stiff from heel to the midfoot, only flexes across the toe joints, is cushioned, supportive, arch support. This is what the good shoe is, and so my hope is that the good shoe is going to be like the cultural idea of what the good shoe is going to change into something that is conducive to the foot functioning as it should. Here in Australia, when a baby starts walking, they are encouraged to be in a wide, thin, flat, flexible shoe, a shoe that's a barefoot shoe, because that's the best for their development. But once they become 3 or 4 years of age, they go into a cushioned, heeled, stiff shoe, because that's supposedly that they need support, like their feet are written off by that age. And so my hope is that that's going to change. I think if we change that 3 or 4-year-old shoe, then we're more likely to be able to change the 5 and 6-year-old shoes and so on. And then we get to a point where we're having far healthier feet as adults because we developed in shoes that let our feet do their thing. And so feet got strong then. Um, that's a big ask, though, because the footwear industry is so big. And for them to go back on the way they have styles that are widest at the base of the toes and then taper is just such a big step. But there's hope because, I go to Barefoot Shoe Expo the last 2 years in the States and another one for the first time this year in the UK. We're having one here in Australia next year. I'll do this all again next year as well. And there are hundreds of brands of barefoot shoes now, and thousands of people come to these events to try on these shoes. This is a happening thing. There are now health practitioners that are suggesting this. I think if podiatrists all got on board to foot-shaped shoes, they would almost do themselves out of a job. Like there would be less need for podiatrists if people just wore foot-shaped shoes, which I guess is part of the problem because we rely on people hurting themselves with their feet, with their shoes and their feet. But, I've been doing this for coming up 10 years and I've seen huge change, like so many more people coming on board. So I can only imagine what it's going to be in 10 years' time. And I'm obviously hopeful. And, I want to do myself out of a job. I would rather teach people about this than have people coming to see me because they've got sore feet.
Yeah. You said you're a private practice, right? So you can kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, that allows you the freedom to, could you treat patients with your approach, and take insurance?
So private practice, so here in Australia, private practice means you do take insurance. So I take
Okay.
insurance, and the insurance hardly pays anything, and it's different. As in, there's not like a 10 treatment protocol here that the insurance will pay for in total. They just pay like a percentage of of
Okay.
my consultation fee, and it's usually a very small percentage. So I really only deal with people that can afford to see me, which is not great. But I also put a lot of free information out on my Instagram, so everyone gets
Mhm.
the benefit of that. I work for the Foot Collective. Um, they're a global health brand for feet. Like, why is that even needed? Why do we even need a global online foot health company? It's because it's because everyone knows they should sleep for 8 hours a night at least. Everyone knows they should eat well. They should move their bodies. They should have some time to be mindful. Like these are pillars of health that are known facts of what we should be doing to look after ourselves. When it comes to feet, the culture still says we should be wearing cushioning and a stiff shoe and arch support. And, most people still think that. So the Foot Collective exists because they're trying to change the narrative on what a healthy foot should be. And people are finally waking up to it. And so, um, my goal is as well, is to normalize healthy footwear. And then you won't need to worry about whether you've got insurance or not. You could do what you're doing and go, oh, I've got this, I've got a niggle in my right foot and I'm working through it. And I'm like using my knowledge about my body and trying this and doing this. And imagine if more people were using that exploratory approach to their own health rather than having to use their insurance to see the physical therapist 10 times over the next 10 weeks. And that being the model of healthcare, because that's not really healthcare, that's disease care.
Yeah. That's a good tagline.
Yeah. That's one of the
Um,
Foot Collective. That's what this is.
okay.
This I'm just regurgitating stuff from them at this stage, but I
Yeah.
do run their courses, so I know the stuff pretty well, and this is kind of what I live by. So yeah.
How'd you get involved with the Foot Collective? Did they
So
come to you?
yeah, Nick started like I started practicing or trying to practice this way and learning about it. And Nick started an Instagram page and I started following it. And so I was learning a lot from him. He had this amazing podcast as well, which is now like full circle, I'm a co-host of. So it's pretty fun. But I learned so much from listening to his podcasts and just like, I was just like, whoa, I can't believe he's saying this stuff. This is so against what I've practiced for the last 15 years. But it makes so much sense. And then he was doing a tour where he's doing these sort of workshops, and he was coming to Australia. And so I invited him to Melbourne, and I was at a gym at the time. And I got him to come and speak, like run his little workshop at that gym. So that went really well. And I met him, and I remember asking him, how do I put this in my practice? And he explained how he runs a consultation. It's not dissimilar to what I do now. So again, I feel like it's come full circle. I teach other people how to do this now. So I got involved with them then. And whenever he came out to Australia, I'd get involved. And Jim was a physical therapist in Brisbane, and he was traveling around with Nick, learning off him as well. And so we met back then. And now he and his mate Mac run with Nick the Foot Collective. So the three of them run it, the two Australians and the Canadian. And they've got, and I think maybe 2 years ago, I started getting more involved again, like actually doing some content for them for online courses. And then I started traveling with them and teaching some of their courses. So yeah, it just sort of evolved from then. Yeah.
Yeah. What um individually, what are your goals going forward with the foot? Like what you kind of talk about wanting to normalize the footwear, and it seems like that's close to the core of
Mm.
the change that you think can be made. It makes sense too, especially if we can get those 3 and 4 year olds wearing more natural footwear by the time they're 30 and 40. You know that it'll be we won't have they won't have to change their assumptions. They'll just uh,
Yeah.
have have different built-in assumptions. But yeah,
Yeah.
so what areas do you hope to kind of make an impact in this area?
I'd love to. We've got a local university here that teaches podiatry. It's where I learned. I think getting in at podiatry student level would be pretty powerful, like to get them to understand. And I don't expect them to all become practitioners like me, but at the moment, when someone goes to a podiatrist or a lot of healthcare practitioners, and they're wearing natural footwear or barefoot shoes, they get told they can't, and it's a problem for them with their injury, whatever they're going to see for. And so my hope there is to help podiatrists, whether it be podiatry students initially, or even like this weekend when I'm speaking to podiatrists at a conference, better be able to help people that want to be in these shoes already. That would be the start. And then maybe start thinking, oh, I can use these shoes as a tool to help people get better as well. That's kind of what I do. And so I think that would be great if more podiatrists could do that. I think then we get healthier feet in the long run. So that's where my goal is at the moment. I don't want podiatrists to say no when someone comes in with those shoes. I want them to understand the shoes and then be able to work with them, because when that changes, like then suddenly, like at the moment, the conferences are sponsored by Asics and Baird, these big shoe companies that are still promoting stiff, narrow shoes. And so how cool would it be if like barefoot shoes were promoting the podiatry conference and podiatrists were all like getting behind barefoot shoes um, and going through like the process that you are of like rehabilitating their feet for themselves. I had this idea. I would love, let's say, Vivo Barefoot to sponsor the subject at the university. And so I go and do some lectures, or someone that's equipped to do these lectures, and they give every student a pair of barefoot shoes. Like this is not much for them. They're basically just creating a market for themselves. Um, give every student a pair of barefoot shoes that they have to transition themselves into over the semester. They transition themselves into and then write up and maybe do some exercises along with it from the Foot Collective, some online exercises or some and work out exercise programs for the foot. If they've all done their anatomy, they know that this muscle does this. So if that muscle does that, how do we strengthen it? Like come up with rehab programs for what they deal with when they're transitioning themselves to barefoot shoes. Like that would be unbelievable. I've had that idea for a long time. I think I'm getting closer to it. I have a podiatry student friend. She's in second year, and she's like in there just like weaseling away at all the other students. She's turned 3 into barefoot shoe enthusiasts already. So it's happening.
Yeah, that I think that's a great idea. My understanding is that the transition is the um kind of the biggest area against the barefoot shoe argument because there's a lot of
Yeah,
injuries in that transition. So
if it's
like
done poorly or not guided.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah, and I'll say I did mine poorly. I yeah, the first time I went running, I could barely walk for weeks. I was lucky I didn't get an injury. Like I was on a run and I got lost, so it ended up, yeah, I went way further than yeah, it was bad.
yeah,
But I was lucky I didn't get injuries. I remember it got really tight, and I was just
yeah.
like it was one step on the right, two on the left for like the last mile.
So this is
Um,
where the benefit of that of kids never going into those shoes,
yeah,
so they never have to go through that because then that is like that would be huge, and I think
yeah,
that's when if you got podiatrists on board saying don't ever put your kids in these heeled shoes, then then that would be a big, then the two meet, those two worlds meet of this generation of wearing shoes that are conducive to natural foot health, and the health practitioners suggesting it. That would be like game changing for then. The shoe
Yeah.
companies would have to listen. They would have to do something about it.
Hmm.
I don't know if you saw it. I put on my Instagram a week or two ago. There's this Nike ad from like 10 years ago or 15 years ago,
I
all
saw that.
about being barefoot. And then they go, oh, the power of the barefoot, all this stuff, all this amazing stuff. And then they go, oh, and here's the shoe that you should put on your foot. And it's narrow, it's heeled, it is soft and squishy, and well, it's soft and squishy, but it's flexible. And then like this week, they just came out with a shoe that's got these pods on the sole that are meant to help you when you're pre-game. You wear them because it really like it drives messages from your foot to your brain and helps you calm down or something. But they're not foot shaped, so they miss out on the big toe getting the pressure because it's like pushed sideways. Um, and there's not a pod under the big toe either. So, but they know, but they're not having to change because there's still all the podiatrists are still wearing them. All the little kids still want to wear the shoes that LeBron's wearing or whoever. But it's
Yeah,
changing. LeBron was seen wearing five fingers in the gym recently,
I
and
saw that.
Cristiano Ronaldo wearing Sagueros, the cheapest brand of barefoot
Mhm.
shoes, the most expensive soccer player ever. There he is wearing these barefoot shoes. They didn't even know he was going to do that, you know. So these guys are going, oh, I should do something about my foot health. So it's changing.
Yeah, it feels. I think there'll be a tipping point. It'll either be Nike comes out with like a trail running barefoot shoe, or Viva Barefoot becomes Nike. They get a
Yeah,
Michael Jordan type athlete
yeah.
to
Well,
change the market.
yeah. Zero, the brand Zero are making shoes for a Denver Nuggets player now, and they've got a shoe out called the X1 that is a basketball shoe, high and low cut, and it's got mixed reviews, but it's coming. This is definitely coming. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm.
Um, we can start wrapping up in a sec, but the last thing I really wanted to ask is for this transition, how would you approach it? Um, yeah, when you're going through it with clients or just giving a buddy advice, what are the
Yeah.
key things to focus on to make sure you avoid injury or at least reduce your risk of injury in the transition phase?
You sort of have to do a self assessment before you start, asking yourself how much time you're barefoot, how much you move in variable ways. Like, do you have like a martial art practice or yoga practice or climbing or something that encourages your body to move in different ways, rather than just running or cycling, which is very uniform in one way. Like, are you a gym goer where you're moving your body and loading your body and conscious of the way you're moving? Like, if you're that, then it becomes a whole lot easier. Um, to make these changes, but then also asking yourself how long you've been in other shoes for. And, if you've been in 20 years or 30 or 40 years in heeled, stiff shoes, like, let's be reasonable about how long it might take for you to change that. It's going to take a while. And so I think that first self-assessment is critical. And then if any, and come up with a plan and then err on the side of caution through that plan. There is no rush. The benefits are going to just start stacking up when you go nice and slowly and don't um, it's only when you overdo it, like you did for your first run. I did the same thing. So many of us did. So excited, to get these shoes and go, oh, let's
Yeah.
see what they feel like. And then you can't hardly walk. It's amazing that we even went back to them because, but so many people must not go back to them.
Yeah.
So you can be excited, but just be gentle, and then wear them maybe for day-to-day living stuff rather than heavy exercise stuff, or wear them to the gym where you're super conscious of the way you're moving. Maybe it's not on a day where you're doing more upper work, so you're not really loading your feet so much, but you're just conscious of the way you're moving. Wear them when you go to the out for dinner, or but not when you go to for that 25-mile hike on the first day. That you get them. So it's just really it's about being sensible, and then if it's also probably worthwhile doing some minor foot exercises on mobility and strength. And so this is where I plug the Foot Collective. I help build those programs on mobility and strength, where there's like a 1 week program that you could just repeat on week after week, which will make your feet more mobile and more strong and be better able to cope with the rigors of wearing a natural shoe, up to their 12-week foot restoration program, which is looking at the way you can sit on the ground and squat and balance, and it brings all these things together as to be a better human movement. A human that can move. and your feet only benefit from that as well. So I think there are so many resources out there that it's probably wise to do a bit of that as well. I think, depending on what your background is. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, all right, you plug the Foot Collective. Can tell everyone to go check that out.
yeah,
Where can everyone else find you? I love your Instagram page. Yeah, where can
yeah.
people
That's
go to?
Andy Bryant, podiatrist. Yeah, Andy. I go in fits and starts. I might post for like 7 days straight and then not do anything for 2 weeks. And mostly it's reposts from stuff I did 3 years ago because it's hard for me to find time to do extra stuff. Um, but I'm always open to having a chat to people there as well and leading them to someone like me in their area, or what program might suit them best. So I'm always happy to help people out as much as I can in that situation. And then I work out of my practice in Melbourne, Australia. People come to see me from around here, obviously, but they also come from all around the world sometimes. Like, it's amazing. Oh, I'm coming to Melbourne for a holiday. Can I come and see you? Or people come from around Australia just to see me. So it's a bit of a buzz. There's a physical therapist in Panama that refers her clients to me. So I've been doing a whole lot of online stuff with people in Panama lately. Um, you know, all over the
Yeah.
world, it's the stuff's been happening, which is pretty amazing. So yeah, I can help people anywhere, but unfortunately, I can't help people in the States. Their insurance stuff in the States makes it hard for us to be covered. So I can help people anywhere but the States, but I have a good referral network in the States of people that do stuff like me. So yeah,
Awesome. And yeah, all those links you mentioned will be included in the description everywhere this podcast is posted. But Andy Bryant, thanks for coming on. This was a treat for me. Yeah, I've been diving down this rabbit hole, so thanks for helping me dig a little deeper.
thanks for having me, mate.
Yeah, awesome. And thank you everyone who's been following along. Remember, like, comment, subscribe. We appreciate it much.